Hey guys, what's up? I'm doing this really quickly because I feel that this has to be added on to the back of the last video I did. There are these points that I really felt should have been added to that video, and I didn't realize that I didn't get these things across until the very end when I put that video up. So I'm trying to get this out really quickly right now, to the point where I'm not even doing the whole 24-hour wait for the Patreon people for it. But I got to get this out really quick because I feel it's important. First off, the new Phat Dragon had pointed out to me in the comment section of the last video that there's a freeze, there's a weird glitch in the video at around 21 minutes 17 seconds, where like right after you see footage of me trying to do one of those blocks against Mo, suddenly you see a freeze frame there. Yeah, I didn't realize that glitch was there until after I had uploaded it. It was fine when I was editing it, and then all of a sudden that popped up. What I can reassure you about, however, is that you're not really missing anything, at least as far as like, the application footage of me trying to go up against Mo. Like, the freeze frame happened when the camera comes back to me. When I do the edit where the camera comes back to me, that's where it glitches up. That's why you see me there frozen. It was just me basically talking to the camera before the camera then freezes. Before the video finally moves again, and then you start, you're not missing any two-person footage, so don't worry too much about that. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what the hell happened. It's a little too late for me to go and fix it now because the video's already up. It was fine when it was on my video editing software, and then I hit render, and then that happened. So I don't know. Now, the next point I want to make, I am really annoyed with myself about this. There was a really important point that I wanted to express in the video. In fact, it was the thing that motivated me to make that response in the first place. And then for some idiotic reason, I don't think I properly expressed it. I did throw something at the very end of the video because I realized at the very end after I was editing, I'm like, holy shit, what the fuck, I didn't. Ugh. And so I threw something at the end, at the very, very end of the, the outro and the text. But I still don't think it's adequate. So I'm going to do it here, and I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible so you guys can understand where I'm coming from. You cannot underestimate the importance of practical experience when it comes to debating martial arts. Now, I am saying this, before I go any further, I am going to stress this again, in case anybody's going to be trying to, accuse me of otherwise. I'm not saying I'm an expert here, okay? Granted, I have been doing this for some time. Practicing martial arts and then sparring against people is something I have some experience in. It's something I like to do, particularly sparring up against people. Granted, I haven't been sparring against people in a while, especially because of the move. I just moved out here. I don't really know anyone out here who's able to clash heads. Like, Mo is the only person so far. And while she does have a martial arts background, it's been a while since she's done it, so she kind of wants to kind of warm herself back up and get back into shape before we really go at it. But, it's something that, one thing I do have experience in is going up against somebody else. And this is the mindset that I now take these particular debates into. I say debates a little bit loosely, but you know what I mean. When it comes to, discussing whether certain moves work or not in martial arts, this is a very long discussion. This is something that's been going on for centuries. This is something that's been going on since the beginning of martial arts. Because everybody's got their own particular set of talents. Everyone's got their own particular physical abilities. Everyone's got their own, ideas on what works, their own mental ideas on what works. And everyone's got their own combat theory. That's why we have so many styles. I mean, yes, say what you want, but there is truth to what Bruce said, about, look, we only got 2 hands and 2 feet, so we can only move them a certain way, practically. Yes, it's true. There's only a certain amount of ways you can do something, efficiently. And that's why when you look at least the basics of weapons work all around the world, there is some overlap. You're going to notice that certain moves are done the same because that's the most practical way to do them. And people sooner or later figure that stuff out. But at the same time, there is a certain context that these movements are done from. And there's a certain frame of mind that these movements are done from. There's a certain, cultural context, combat theory, things like that. That tends to change and vary. The details sometimes change. So you can debate these things ad nauseum. I mean, I've heard everything, like, for example, kicks. I've heard, just in Chinese martial arts alone, I've heard views that, to kick, you failed. You shouldn't kick at all. You should keep your legs on the ground. And then on the other end, especially over here, but high kicks are high levels of skill. And you can see this run the gamut. Some Kung Fu styles they kick, others Kung Fu styles they don't, or others they kick high, and others they kick low, and none of them can agree on what works and what doesn't. Even though, but you see people practically applying this. And that's why the debate keeps on going. So, yeah, this is the type of stuff that, quite frankly, may not end. But, hey, that's to our entertainment, right? However, the situation changes when we're arguing these things and we don't have practical experience, where we're mostly armchair debating, or we're armchair generaling. So, like, we're just sitting there watching other people do it, or watching somebody else, or reading what someone else has to say about it, and we go, hey, I think that works. But we don't really have any practical experience to argue from. And that's a very dangerous position to be in when it comes to debating martial arts stuff. This is coming from the guy who, by the way, made the video that some pissed off a lot of people when I said that, oh yeah, a properly written book or a properly written video can train you in at least the basics of a martial art, as long as you have a partner who's willing to practice it with you, and both of you are willing to put in the work, and then you're able to, train each other in a resistive sort of way. The flack I got for that one, and I still hold to that, because if every other form of human knowledge is able to be put down in that way, people can learn from it. What's the difference with martial arts? I've never gotten a satisfactory answer for that. But even with me saying that, at the end of the day, you still need to go out there and practice it on someone. And what I mean by practice on someone, not just simply do the motions in a static way and have someone just standing there taking it, or if they're doing the move that you're supposed to attack or defend or whatever, that they do it in a slow way that you can see it coming, and or you know it's coming, and you just do it 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 times until you get the muscle memory right. Yeah, that part's important. You need to do that. But then you need to go and see if it works when the person's just coming at you, when you have no clue what's coming at you. None. And, you just have to rely on your training to save you. And that's what's ultimately going to dictate what moves work and what doesn't. And this is something that only comes about, again, you have to go out there and do this. And this is something I have some experience in. The reason why I was able to put up the Chinese sword video stuff I've done and point out, well, this is practical, this works, this one doesn't work, because it's stuff I've done. I've gone up against other people who practice sword skills. Interestingly enough, none of them with a Chinese background. I've gone up against fencers, I've gone up against rapier fighters, I've gone up against people who train some longsword stuff. I've gone up against 1 or 2 kendo guys, but, no Chinese guys. Kind of interesting. There's some commentary in that and stuff, I guess. But it's interesting going up against people with completely different backgrounds right away throws you off your balance. And you suddenly realize, okay, what's going to work and what doesn't. Because if it works here, it can work against anything. And that's what, I got rid of a lot of techniques that way. Stuff that is like, okay, nope, this is just getting me killed. If you don't have that in your background, if it's not something that you're used to doing, it's very dangerous to then point out, I got issues with this, or I got issues with that, or I think this is wrong. You could be right. I could be dead wrong. But how do you really know? You have to throw yourself out there and do that. If you're only arguing from a theory aspect of things, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, even if you are correct. I had to learn that lesson the hard way years ago. You have to have that background. So that's where I was coming from with the video. In particular, I think this is already going 10 minutes. I wanted this to be 5. Let me end this with this. There are a lot of factors that one has to take into account when sparring or fighting with weapons against a resistive opponent. There's 2 really important ones out of many important ones. But there's 2 that I want to point out that I think everyone listening to this need to keep in mind. If the move that you're doing takes multiple steps, it probably isn't going to work. If you can't do it smoothly, like if whatever the technique it is that you're doing, you can't do it smoothly, you can't do it instinctively, it doesn't come out consistently, and it's like, basically, if it's not just something that can just quickly be whipped out on reaction, there's a problem. Even if you train in it a million times, if at the end of the day you still can't put it out, consistently enough to reliably depend upon it, you might as well move on to something else. Try a different technique. Because I could tell you from experience of going up against other people, both bare hand and with weapons, The techniques that made me win were the simplest ones. The techniques that made me win were the ones that I can continuously do smoothly and quickly on reaction. When it came to using my sword, when it came to using my hands, when it came to using my feet, whatever. Once I started working with stuff that relied on a lot of crazy different things in order to make it work, a whole lot of factors in order to make it work, that's where things fell apart. The second point is, when you're doing weapons work, definitely it has to be a smooth, consistent technique, but the other thing is the movement has to take advantage of the features of the weapon. If they don't, or if they work against the features of the weapon, you should throw it aside. Or at the very least, re-examine it. Maybe there's a different way to do it or something. But if you find yourself doing something that doesn't take advantage of the strength of that weapon, you're at a disadvantage right away. Like with the straight sword. Blocking, for instance, with the middle to the end part of the weapon is not taking advantage of the strength of that weapon. In fact, that puts you at a disadvantage. In fact, blocking with the sword, I mean, yeah, there are blocks for it, but there's a reason why I hate hard blocks, because they're kind of hard to transition from. You need movements that transition you immediately from defense to offense. If the movement you're doing doesn't easily allow for that, or if it automatically puts you at a disadvantage and now you're trying to get out of that disadvantage instead of just instantly reacting against the opponent, there's a problem. This is something that only practical experience tends to teach you. When you're actually trying to do the movements and you realize that as you're trying to do these movements, you're still getting clobbered, it's like, wait a second. This is that eye that I'm using whenever I'm like going, like, that's what motivated me to make this video in the first place. I'm looking at those movements and I'm going, I'm not too sure how well it's going to work. Like, I was seeing, like, the things that I demonstrated in the video were things that I was already seeing in my mind's eye. Like, that's going to get your hands hit. The weapon's just going to slide a grunt stack. The sticks are too short to consistently rely on. It's not taking advantage of what the weapon is. These are things that come to mind with practical experience. You need that practical experience to make that point. If we're just armchair debating this, we can go on forever, and it's not going to lead anywhere. Now, if it's two people who have practical experience, and one person's going, I don't think that's going to work, and the other person's going, oh yeah, it does, that is what really makes it interesting, because then that person can go and demonstrate it high speed against a restrictive opponent, and that opens the other person's eyes and goes, whoa, I didn't know that was possible, and that adds something new to the realm of human knowledge of martial arts. And that's always cool. I love it when that's done to me. That's happened to me so many times over the years. I didn't realize, wow, that's how that's done. I like that. You know, that's another reason why I like doing these videos, because I get surprised every now and then. But you need that practical experience in order to do it. It's one thing to study from theory, and it's another thing to actually have to go out there and use it. It really is two different things. I can't stress that enough. You have to go out there and do it against someone else. And yeah, that practical experience counts for a lot. So yeah, that's what I want to stress. This is now 13 minutes. I'm sorry this is so long. Don't get the wrong impression here. I'm not trying to say I'm better than anyone else. I'm not trying to say I'm an expert. I'm not trying to, I'm just saying that this is where I'm coming from when I'm making these videos. That's the standpoint I'm speaking from. So, I got other videos I need to do, and I need to get ready and head out to work. I'll catch you guys later.